guys are solar, we are lunar. So we have 28 days, exactly the same as the cycle of the moon. How crazy.
We're connected.
Right? We're connected, and it's people are like, it's truly magical. And so not too long ago, women took their cycle very seriously. We were not surrounded by artificial lights, so we were synced to the moon. So what happened was I would be menstruating around new moon because it's dark at night, and this is the time for me to go inwards, sit in the darkness, reflect back. And then around full moon, I would be ovulating. So I would be very fertile, and just so I can see my lover's face at night because the moon was so bright, we would meet and, have sex.
Right.
Ultimately.
Make babies.
We make babies. And so that's how we were designed. Hi, my name is Aggie, and this is Biohacking Bestie. The one-stop shop for a modern queen, where you can find biohacking courses, self-growth courses, and where you can find the most incredible community of women so you can hit all of your biohacking goals and beyond.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
For all of us tuning in, we've already been having a full-on conversation. So you're coming in on this. I just found out about your travel experience, and then we started talking about down to earth and so many similarities to that. And you just turned down a travel show, which is funny. Just like you were saying, ironically, 2 years ago or whatever, you would have easily jumped at it.
Yeah,
but
and
now
I think
life changes.
because I'm in love with the world. My blog was called Travel in Her Shoes because I wanted to see what it's like to live in other people's shoes. Because there's this idea that, especially in the US, that we have it best. We're the first world country, we're number one, and everyone else is okay in the world. And then you start to travel and you realize people are so full of joy. They smile, they're light, they're radiant, they're not depressed, they're healthy. And you're like, oh, actually, maybe my ego was blinding me from this idea that I have it so much better, but I seem pretty miserable, and my friends too. So maybe it's worth opening your eyes and see that people in other countries actually can bring some value to us with the way they think, the way they eat, the way they live. And that's why I started to travel. What I didn't realize, it's, that 7 hours of plane flight is compared to an X-ray. So a lot of radiation, not very healthy food. And I was following the mainstream diet that, led me to under-eating and being, the typical LA female diet of just drinking smoothies and lattes and not really having proper nutrients. I got very sick and I got burnt out and depressed, and that's how I got into wellness. But I always look at you, I'm like, you're like the male version of what I want to be and become, because you got the travel going on, you got the health going on, and I'm still missing the cooking part and the wellness, the true unfuckable with wellness that you have.
Yeah. Well,
you're really, you do not give a shit. I love it.
Well, thank you. And it's
in the most beautiful way. That's a compliment.
Yeah, and I take it that way. Thank you. And it's I think over time you get to a point where your values and the sacrifice of the values really just make some big issues in your life, right?
And you're just so comfortable in yourself, which I really appreciate. You know who you are, you love who you are. That's just so beautiful. And I think that's just a testament, because obviously, when you're watching someone's podcast, you never really know until you meet them. But we met last week and I was like, wow, you're so real. And I think being real is rare.
I'm just me. But I do see the world and the fact that is even a conversation of that quality is rare is scary as hell.
Yeah.
It's scary. Just as humanity, as we're being manipulated by algorithmic ideas and concepts, and to your point, it's worth mentioning when you step out of, I'm a small town kid, from Minnesota. My brother has never been on a plane.
Wow.
2 years older. He's never been on a plane. I have no business even sitting in this chair in Malibu, having a TV show, even traveling to 40, 50 countries. I
Yeah.
have no business doing that. And I think over time, it's like, I think the one thing that I also see in you is that when you find out who you are through experiences, because there's many different ways, but we are in life. It is an experience every moment, right? If we're willing to that point, travel seems to put us in all of these uncomfortable situations where
Yeah.
you're forced to open, interact with people maybe you wouldn't normally, because you're vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine as a woman. I can't
Oh, yeah. That's
fucking,
another
because I have my
layer.
own stories of like, oh, this is sketchy,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, sketchy town, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine being a woman in,
Especially, I look foreign in most of the
right?
countries. That's the problem, right?
Yeah,
You're like, I stick out like a sore thumb. It's like, I'm very petite,
yeah,
small, and blonde. So
yeah.
that's like,
What do you find? I mean, we have so much to talk about, and I want to get into it, but like, what do you found is when I shift my energy when I'm traveling makes the biggest difference? Do you find that too? Like, because if you see a scenario, because I'm sure
mhm,
you've been into it, you're
yeah,
like, okay, this is a little vulnerable for me. And if you fall into the fear of it,
yeah.
it can make things,
100%. And, for me, it's really interesting even to travel with my fiance or with a partner and then by myself, or the moment he disappears. Like,
right,
we're in India and, he's like, I'm just going to stay on my computer. Just go by yourself to grab a coffee. And all of a sudden, the very same country I thought it was nice and friendly turns into a very scary place. So it's
because
quite,
you stand out so much.
yes. And I
Yeah.
think I'm usually quite trusting and open to people, and I think they can pick up on the energy that I'm not aggressive, and it's okay for it to come up or say anything. And I have had some really sketchy, scary experiences. And the funny thing is, as I was trying to like even put in the book about the cortisol and how women need to look at ourselves as differently because we feel like prey, whenever I'm by myself, even in Bali, whether it's in the US, walking late at night, there's that underlying fear that I can get attacked, and not by a bear, by a fellow human
Right.
that can really hurt me.
Right.
So it's not like guys don't really feel that
No.
on daily basis. And I don't know a woman who can say, in the last year, I have not been afraid of my life. We do without traveling. So when you let that sink in and let that help you understand, like, this is how my nervous system operates, and this is what I'm dealing with every single day. So when women, account for 80% of autoimmune diseases, when women feel burned out, when women feel like there's all of these digestive gut issues, it is really linked to our sense of safety. And so I'm realizing we have to approach the way we look at food and the way we look at ourselves very differently than men just because of that, right?
Wow, that's such a wider aperture and view that you just brought in, because, and which is a perfect segue into your book, which is like looking at this world of biohacking, and really biohacking is trying to optimize, right?
Hmm.
So and specifically women, and there's some very, I mean, just that alone from a big picture perspective, even having that sense of 80% of your day you feel like a prey,
Mm,
that's gnarly. And
yeah.
imagine you're riding a level of cortisol that's different than me. Like, I
Oh,
might be stressed and I need to achieve, and I have my other testosterone filled adventures of
yeah.
that, right? But that's different than, I'm not looking around my shoulder that I'm being, preyed upon.
Yeah, and I think for us women, even when you walk down the street in the middle of the day and someone walks faster behind you, my immediate response is like,
Yeah.
how do I protect myself?
Yeah.
Right? When you're a big dude with that's very muscular, you probably don't have that. You probably think, oh, someone's just walking behind me,
Yeah.
because you don't really have that lens that you look at through the life. And it's beautiful because there are men like you. There are amazing men like my fiance who not only is supportive, but also can't even imagine because you never thought of attacking a woman, right? So for you, it's like, wait, I never thought about it, that all the women in my life, and whoever's listening to this, please ask, if you're a man, ask the women in your life, when was the last time they felt unsafe? And I guarantee that's going to be not too long ago, and how we can change that, right? Because it's like it will have impact on our bodies and on our weight. I call fat in the book like the safety suit, because it really is protecting us on so many levels. And when we don't really feel safe and loved, that's what happens.
That's, we could go off on a philosophical spin here too, and we're going to get into some things in your book, but this is also important, and I think this way all the time, and especially when you get that insight, which you're giving me right now in a deeper level, and you hear, certainly having gone through relationships, having been married, you hear as a man, hey, maybe not directly, but maybe in retrospect, women just want to feel safe, right? In the relationship. But this is yes, and if they're coming in now, I see it more clearly, even in this conversation. If they're coming in feeling unsafe in the world in a radically different way than me, radically different. Because for me, if we're traveling and I'm walking by a situation, I clock a guy, I'm already in my head figuring out ways I'm going to knock him out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Fight or,
right.
and I'm going to flight, literally. Because
Right. Like if he does something, automatically my brain, or is there a way to get the fuck out of this situation? But I'm not in necessarily fear. So, but my point is that if you're coming from that and then you're looking into a relationship and you're looking for a man that is going to provide safety and not extra stress and I can't imagine, like, both sides. It's like communication breaks down. No one's really getting into the truth of stuff. Things stay at a surface level. We gotta spend time doing that. And then if you have family, it gets busy, and I get it. But the fabric of us as humans, we gotta connect and we gotta make that have a meaning. And I can imagine as a woman, if you're coming home and part of your home is with your partner and you don't feel safe, like truly, wow, that's just not going to work.
Yeah, and that's, I think a lot of people, a lot of women listening to this right now can relate to some level, because we feel safe with a man who knows themselves. That's what makes us feel safe. Like, you've been through some shit, you proven to yourself what you want, what you don't want. So when you say, hey, I'm going to do it, and you mean it, I can trust that you will. But unfortunately, that's not often the case, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to talk badly about men, because there's obviously so many people out there doing amazing things and super supportive men, but it is quite common that, what would be the right word? Not being authentic, but saying the truth, right? Coming back to the beginning of our conversation, being real and saying things and being okay with disappointing people. Is okay as long as you can stay authentic and true to yourself. And I think it's really funny that we created this world where it's not okay to disappoint anybody. I mean, you have 500,000 followers that are probably expecting God knows from you. And it's this big expectation, and the book publisher and the studio and fans of the show. And the biggest thing you can tell to someone right now is like, oh my God, you disappointed me. And we have to be able, we're adults, we're capable of being disappointed, and you can't fulfill everyone's expectations. As long as you can stay true to yourself, people will respect you. And I think women need more of that, more people that are men that are okay to disappoint them on some level, because they will say, oh, you're not doing what I want you to do, but I feel safe because you're doing what feels right to you, and you're in like full alignment of your truth, and I can trust you.
Well, I think we've lost, and that's such a great point, and we've lost, and it's a muscle to work on radical
Oh, I love this.
honesty,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Right? It's a muscle to be, and it's vulnerable on both sides, because a man wants to feel safe too, because at a certain point, the man, not from a boy perspective, but the man really does want nurturing, right? He wants to know that he can pour his love and protect and guidance of any kind into, and it's received and is reflected back in a loving way. But if it comes back as more kind of intensity, that's what he's dealing with out here.
Yeah.
And then that's not going to work either. So, but to your point, truth
Is the hottest thing.
yes, and can feel like an attack. I know when I've heard the truth, I for sure have gotten defensive way too many times.
Oh, same.
But at the same time, when truth is spoken, even if I haven't had my head around it and I understand it, I know that I'm going to circle back around and I'm going to own that, and then that's like, oh shit, I was nailed. Like I'm nailed. Like I was absolutely doing that, and I messed up, and but being able to deal with that messy stuff is in a safe way with partnerships. I think that mastery is impenetrable. Like if you go through that stuff as partners and you come out through that, you just get closer and closer. But if you don't do that, you just get farther away. I mean, that's oversimplification, but
it's also true.
yeah.
100%. And I think it's even harder when you're in a relationship that women, and again, this is a very general statement, but we tend to be really hard on men. And some of it is beautiful because we see the potential of men that we're with, and we want you can see, you can do better, come on. Right. But there's also that we're really, really hard on ourselves. Right. And we're socially, just like men are not socially accepted or celebrated for crying, it's considered somewhat weak, which is, I think, a very old paradigm. But I haven't seen my dad cry or my grandpa cry. It was just like not a thing, right? It's almost like embarrassing. It's the same thing for women, for us being angry. Yeah. So men repress sadness and women repress anger. Because, what do you call a woman who's angry? Bitch.
The
right?
B word, yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh my God, an angry woman. But we, as the protector of our children, we will get angry. Anger is super healthy. And so repressed angers will manifest. If you don't express your anger, or it will manifest as a disease in your body. And if you can manage your anger in a safe environment, not directed at somebody about a petty thing, but just let that anger as an emotion process just because it is, it will be perfectly fine. That is the true magic to even biohacking. Because I always say, forget biohacking, like figure out your own shit and all the unprocessed emotions, and you'll probably be healthy, even on an unhealthy diet, because everything will align, right? And
yeah.
That's like the biggest thing. And so for women, having the permission, I have Woody Allen said, I never get angry, I just grow a tumor. And I think it's very true. Like, it's okay to get angry, just not at somebody for something else. Right. Just, I have an anger station at home. It's a pillow. And sometimes I just feel like, we have generational anger of like, even what you're saying about me feeling like prey, I just feel like that's bullshit, that my experience of life is on full alert a lot of times, or when traveling, which is my biggest passion. And there's a part of me that just like anger comes up, and I try not to get it out on my fiance, because that frustration has nothing to do with him or men in general, and he doesn't deserve to be screamed at. And so the anger station is really helpful.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's such a big one. And finding that level, I mean, obviously there's so many nuances. There's compatibility of the partnerships and the
Yeah.
trust. There has to be a level of trust to be able to kind of, sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it's just like the emotions are running over and it gets all distorted and anyway, I'm not a relationship expert, but I certainly I love the idea of radical honesty and being able to just let it rip with
Yeah.
someone. You
Yeah.
know?
And I always say to women I work with, you can dry brush all you want, but if you don't, if you're in a toxic relationship,
You can't get that off
yeah.
unless you change it.
Yeah,
In
so
whatever
you
way.
can wear all the like organic clothing and dry brush and
Yeah.
no use of floss, none of the fatal conveniences, but
That's
then
right.
you're in a shitty relationship
Yeah.
and you will be sick, you
I
know?
mean, that's probably the biggest fatal convenience is just
That's gonna be the next book.
just the next one, man.
But you know, relationship, a lot of us are in a relationship out of convenience. So this is that is a fatal.
Oh, you just tagged a bunch of people right now.
Yeah.
Because you know, when you say that and someone listening, you know it. And then it's our intuition. And how much do we blow that off?
Oh,
Like my last relationship, some great qualities, but I knew it wasn't going to be like, I knew. It was faint. And I also knowingly kind of continued to go
I mean,
into it.
we've all been there.
For sure. And it extracted some good things too. But then when it just kind of came to a head, you're like, yeah, okay. I'm good now. Like, it's just, anyway.
Yeah, isn't it funny how like the gut feeling, the whole
Doesn't go
idea of
away.
like gut, you know, and the idea that you kind of know what's best for you. And, you know, there's like this big conversation about the ideal diet. And I think I love the work of Weston Price. I don't know if you're familiar with him. When he traveled the world, just for those who don't know, he was a dentist in 1920s and he was treating a lot of super young patients. And he's like, something's like really fishy here because I shouldn't have a job. Like, why do we even have dentists in the first place? What's going on? So he started traveling, and sure, there were so many plant-based tribes. There were tribes that only ate meat, and there was not a single vegetable. But what was true, they ate very local, organic, you know, whatever. Just what was
Beyond organic.
yeah. And where was I going with this? Oh, and like you, at the end of the day, like some of our DNA is different, and some people will do really well on a plant-based diet, and some people will do better when you have some animal protein. And we create this like separation and so much fighting against what is the diet, and that creates even more like I don't want to build a separation from anybody. That's ego. Why don't we say that, like, okay, this is what's working for you right now. This is what's working for me. I'm not here to judge you. And listen to your gut instinct. And maybe that is the best diet for you. I don't know. Like, I don't know your ancestors. I don't know your gut. We only share 10% of our gut and 99% of our DNA. So, like, that is like, you know, perhaps there's a little bit of grace because we still know so little about human body to just, I don't care how many PhDs you have, there's that.
You don't know shit.
Yeah, we don't know shit. It's true magic. Like we know the biology and we know, but then every couple of years we find out something new.
Yeah.
And then the science turns out it's changing. So maybe a little bit of humility of like, maybe we just don't know. Right. And if that feels really true to you and good for you, good, go for it because you ultimately know best.
Yeah. No, I love that because, you know, just opening up that just a second because, you know, really in the last 10 years, the bacteria in the gut, no one knew anything about it.
Yeah.
And you realize there's more DNA that isn't you in your body than you, right? So by a factor of 10. and that bacteria is metabolically doing things that we barely understand, right? So it's not even what you eat anymore. It's how you're able to assimilate and uptake, and the body is turning on enzymes and neurotransmitters and all of these things. And then the terrain changes based on who you are, where
Yeah.
you're from, what you're around, what your stress is, what you're consuming, and then all the epidemiological expressions of the infinite amount of DNA, right? I mean, it is
Like too
impossible.
many variables to have just a
A
general,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I always say like you are what your food ate, and people feel like, oh, cool, it's grass fed. I'm like, no, but like for plants, it's like you're not as how you look at. I don't know. Let's just take a tomato. You think, oh, tomato has that many vitamins and this and that, but actually your tomato is as healthy as your soil. So if
Yeah.
your tomato has been eating the wrong kind of soil, it's not a great tomato. You're still gonna, that's why we're constantly like hungry
Totally.
because the food has no nutrients.
Yeah.
And if we know so little about the quality of the soil, it has never been like, imagine going to Whole Foods and being like, hey, here's how we take care of the soil where this tomato is coming from. Like a little bit of an explanation. This is what I'm doing. This is how we take care of it. It's a regenerative farm. Da da da. Because ultimately, how healthy that tomato is that you're eating depends on the soil.
Yeah. Well, and every chef on the planet knows that they don't have to add much to anything when
Yeah.
it's a fresh, organic, and that's part of what we did in Down
Yeah.
to Earth too. We got to eat with some of the best chefs on the planet. And every one of them is like, I know exactly where my food is because I need to use less flavoring and everything because the flavor is exploding and it's all from the soil,
Yeah.
you know? Okay, I'm going to blast you with a few rapid fire, but I have a feeling we're not going to rapid fire anything.
All right.
But speaking to that, the women are different thing, because that's a perfect segue. And your book lays that out. You had your own personal story around that, but in terms of, eating and weight loss, why is it a mistake to follow, number one, what guys are doing? Most of the jibber jabber, I think, on the internet is just, some bromance of a guy, talking about fasting or,
Yeah.
eat this or eat that or whatever. What are some of your tenets or the things that we'll dig into some more, but what are the things that stand out the most that you discovered and you get into in the book?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think we have been treated a little bit like less hairy version of men, even by ourselves. And so what's turning out, there's these incredible studies, and a lot of diets are based on studies. But when you dive into the studies, and I had a massive medical team helping me dig deeper and find out, there's like, wow, there were no menstruating women in those studies. So everything that I think
So,
is a
yeah,
science-based diet is
right.
a science based on 21-year-old men in college that sign up for these studies. And so, sure,
Jeez.
what works for them is not going to work for me.
Right.
Why? Because apart from circadian rhythm that we both have, and men have circadian rhythm, you get a boost of testosterone in the morning, right? So you can see it, you can feel it, and then it kind of you can use it to go to the gym and it dies down in the afternoon. We have that as well, a little bit, circadian rhythm. And then we have infradian rhythm, and that's our 28-day menstrual cycle. So you guys are solar, we are lunar. So we have 28 days, exactly the same as the cycle of the moon. How crazy,
We're
right?
connected.
We're connected, and it's people are like, it's truly magical. And so, not too long ago, women took their cycle very seriously. We were not surrounded by artificial lights, so we were synced to the moon. So what happened was I would be menstruating around new moon because it's dark at night, and this is the time for me to go inwards, sit in the darkness, reflect back, and then around full moon, I would be ovulating. So I would be very fertile, and just so I can see my lover's face at night because the moon was so bright, we would meet and have sex,
Right.
ultimately.
Make
Let's try
babies.
to make babies. And so that's how we were designed. And now, because we are so disconnected with all the lights, it's really hard for women to figure out, like, when the moonlight is, right? So our cycles are out of whack. As you know, we're surrounded by endocrine disruptors, most of which mimic estrogen in our bodies. Most women don't have regular cycles. And so we're surrounded by processed food that spikes our glucose. We have PCOS, endometriosis, the gut issues that are often connected to our womb, so endometriosis. So fertility is the
It's an
biggest thing that, yeah.
annihilation. It's an onslaught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even in Weston Price's work, when he said that just 2 generations of malnutrition will lead to infertility in mice if you undernourish mice. And so we're doing that to women with like a really poor soil. And we combine that with a pile of toxins that they're eating that absolutely confuses their hormonal system. And then we're surprised why we're infertile and why we need to go through this IVF, or we have very early perimenopause, right? So this is not to point fingers to make you feel bad that you have hormonal issues. It's quite the opposite. It's like, it's completely normal that you're struggling. You should be struggling because your body's doing her best at managing that bullshit of an environment that she lives in. So that's when I realized, I was like, okay, we're a little different. We have this also, like we mentioned earlier, this sense of safety. So if I go really really hard on fasting, and I'm responsible for keeping the species alive, I'm essentially saying it's not safe to have babies, so I'm going to lose my period. And it drives me crazy. There's so many fitness experts. I'm like, hey, I have a snatched waist. I haven't had a period in 10 years, but this is my diet and a meal plan. I'm like,
So many.
I mean, it's your 5th vital sign, right? So we have a 4 vital sign if you're a man, and women have 5th one. If you don't have your period, this is a big alarm. And on top of that, just one more thing, ovulation is our superpower. So like, I have never been informed that ovulation makes my bones stronger, helps me with insulin management, makes me more attractive, and just makes me smarter, right? So I look better. I'm 6 days before my ovulation. But if you see me in 6 days, you'd be like, oh shit, she looks good. My hair falls really good. That's because I'm trying to attract a male, right? It's our superpower. But what do we tell women? Have a pill so you don't get pregnant and you will not have ovulation for 20 years, right? So that depletes our minerals, that leads to depression, that strips us from the superpower of an ovulation that strengthen our bones and our guts and our insulin, sensitivity. And so, it makes you feel like, what the hell
It's
is going on?
misidentified.
Yeah.
It's completely misidentified. And over time of our kind of modern world of massive fatal convenience, right?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you're hitting all of these very, very, very important things. Like, I always laugh when people like stay up all night and, well, that's just how I work. I'm like, you're going against the entire universe. That the circadian rhythm is there for you are that, right?
Yeah.
And as a woman, with the lunar cycle and the flow of ovulation and hormones and it's so delicate and so powerful, which is why I talked about all of these endocrine disruptors in my book, because, like you said, with the plastics and plasticizers and we talked last time, the tampons and like just artificial everything. It's so gnarly because it's hitting at the fabric, literally, of us moving forward in the world, right? And that is, every individual now has to try to make sense of like, why do I not feel good? And you're a shining example of like, you weren't feeling good, so you took it on. You changed what seems to be you changed your entire life from traveling to I need to focus on this. And like me, you're like, well, if I'm going to do this and I found my way, I want to tell other people and other women about it.
Yeah.
Because we're running, and this is no one's fault. There's a bit of apathy right? We're used to this is what life is, and it's like, no, we're divorcing life.
Yeah. Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, let's not divorce life. Let's understand life, use technology when it's appropriate, but like take our shoes off, get out in the sun, like have healthy relationships, stay off of certain things, and allow your powerful ovulation. You know, and I'll just say this. I did a lot in Colorado when I moved from Minnesota to Colorado. I had an immense challenging time and the most enlightening time of my life in my 20s in Colorado. And I was dealing with some challenges, and I met this Native American group, right? Medicine men and legit people from Lakota Nation, and so I did a lot of sweat lodges and a lot of
Oof.
ceremonies, and just
Sweat
like
lodges are brutal.
yeah, just one after another, hundreds,
Wow.
right? Because the medicine was just huge for me, and I just completely, when I go in, I go all in. And I remember very distinctly, because there was a point, yes, women and men can be in the same lodge, but they would say, if you're ovulating, you can't be in it. And I'm always thinking, well, that's a little shitty. Like,
Yeah.
why not let them in? And then check this out. I don't know if you know about Lakota history, but the Lakota history of Black Elk. He wrote this incredible book called Black Elk Speaks, and he was the prophet
I
of the
don't.
Lakota people. And I read it when I was like 20 something, and it just changed my life. Cut to, I'm doing all these ceremonies, and there's relevance to this story, which is why I'm
I
bringing it
believe you.
up.
I'm not
I'm not
turning
going
up.
off and just and so we're doing, it's at night, the fire's going, the lava rocks are getting ready, the sweat lodge is done. It's incredible. Now they feel like my family. And all of a sudden, this old native guy comes in. He starts talking. And I'm like, who is this guy? And they're like, it's Wallace Black Elk. So it's the direct descendant
Wow.
of this black elk. And he's 80 something. Speaking, like, just got done speaking at the UN on chemistry, and like just this incredible guy. And he brings us into the lodge. And he starts explaining things in a much deeper way. And one thing that he brought up was, we don't discriminate women from coming in. We honor them. They bleed. The only thing we can give of our body is blood. That's why they do. There's the Vision Quest, and that's not necessarily giving blood, but the Sundance, and where they pierce themselves, and they, at least traditionally, the men,
Wow.
right? Sacrifice, and you this is your offering. Well, women do it every month. And he was like very clear. The energy around a woman is too powerful for us. It's in the lodge, and we can't handle it.
Wow.
So out of respect, out of honoring them, they need to harness and not be distracted by our crazy energy that we can't handle this stuff. So he said a lot more eloquently
Yeah,
than
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I was like, because it flipped the whole thing for me. It was like, it was actually an honoring.
Yeah, and to a celebration, we live in a patriarchy, so it's based on the idea that not men are superior, but for me, patriarchy comes from a place where you're afraid of female power. And so we'll do everything to repress it because we almost can't handle it. It's that powerful, not the other way around, I believe.
Yeah.
And so as an invitation, like there's like more honoring of each cycle in different cultures for different reasons. And it's only now that if we went on the street here in Malibu and ask 5 women, what's the day, what day of your cycle are you on? Most women wouldn't even know. They have no idea. They're like, oh, I don't know. When did I have my period?
So they're not in tune.
Well, because we're not ever taught to celebrate. It's just this annoying thing that happens that you have your period. It's kind of gross, you know. We make them covered up as much as possible and make them, you know, even the whole idea of tampons comes a little bit from a place of like, make sure to almost like cover the
Cover it
fact.
up. No one,
Yeah.
like, keep living your
Yeah.
life and don't bother us with that
Yes.
issue.
Like it's don't
Yeah.
bother us with what's going on in your body versus
Right.
like because it makes me uncomfortable, right? And so I in my own journey I experienced that whole transition from feeling like I wish I was more like you as a man because you know periods are annoying and you know I get my PMS and whatnot until I realized that even though PMS is common, it's not normal. And this whole myth of normal that Dr. Gabor Mate says that just because something is common, it's not normal. Just because everyone else is doing
Yes.
it does not mean that's normal.
Amen.
And that was like, oh, wait, oh shit, maybe I should try and like eat according to my cycle and live my life according to the cycle. And turns out that guess what? Like you don't get like crazy bitchy right before your period if you provide your body with what she needs, you know? So,
Yeah, amazing.
and it's like also
That's,
beautiful for men to, you know, we as women need to set that standard because if we celebrate our own cycle, the men will too, and they will want to educate themselves and want to understand. But again, men don't even know a ton about. We can ask around like, what day of your cycle your partner is on. Men wouldn't know, right? Because it's like, I would just know when she's right before her period because she
right.
wants to kill me. But it would be beautiful for us to have that understanding. Like, wow, what if we in this capitalistic approach to be always productive 24/7, always producing, always more, always go up, right? It's like all profit related and efficiency and you know your worth
GDP.
is based on how much value you bring to the society and how much work you bring. If you're just being like you don't deserve to be here. And for us as women, it's like, oh, right before my period, I have to go within. I need to do less and be more. And being is not a celebrated activity, so
No,
to say.
not in
And
this
so
culture.
I think as we women embrace our being, we invite men to, you know, to not be burnt out either. You know, that's like if you have a woman in your life that's just like, hey, like, let's just, you know, come here, you know, we can just be together. Ah, it actually
Oh,
works
God, it
both,
just
right?
gave my heart like a big hug. Just that
Yeah.
idea.
That you can just be. There's nothing, nowhere you need to be, nowhere nothing you need to do right now. It's just be with me.
Yeah.
And I actually had a conversation with my fiance. I said to him, I don't think we're in a relationship. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like,
What happened?
and he's like, what happened? I'm like, we are doing relationship, but we are not in the relationship. So we started like practicing like eye gazing every morning and just kind of like be with each other because of like we do
Yes.
things next to each other, but we aren't really are in the
And
relationship.
I mean, and then especially when you have cell phones and business and emails, and then next thing you know, you mean a classic thing is you look at any table these days,
Yeah,
and everyone's staring at their phone while they're
yeah,
together. It's just, you know, we need to, again, those normalizations need to be like in check.
yeah.
You
And
know,
I don't think. When was the last time you felt bored? Because you know, when you're
never,
growing up,
never.
well, but when you grow up, like I was bored as a kid, right? Because we didn't have cell phones and you had to get a little bored because you were like, you didn't have toys and you had to like come up with things or just sit there and allow yourself to be bored. We never allow ourselves to be bored because we're on traffic lights and so, you know, listen to music or be on the phone.
Totally.
We're never really bored. And I think, again, what a beautiful exercise. Can I just be bored for a little bit?
Yeah. We'll sit in the silence.
Yeah.
I tell you what, like that's the most attractive thing of waking me up every day is this idea of
Oh, thank you so much. You guys were drinking such good water.
oh yeah, we don't mess around with the water. But the idea that I get to get up and be quiet and silent. And the vastness of silence is so immense that it's impossible to be bored.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I mean, this morning, it was so almost emotional this morning.
Wow.
How deep, every once in a while, it's like, of course I meditate, I do the thing, and sometimes it feels like I just went through the motions.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I don't know how it happens, it feels like I'm being meditated.
Oh, wow.
Like some element is there, like God stepped in and we're hanging out. And that I can't even speak about it. I couldn't
Yeah.
even, maybe art could reflect something of it, or music. And I was on a loop of music today too. So after that meditation, I kept playing the same, and it was taking me. And so I was journaling. Anyway, it's a whole tangent,
Oh,
but it was
beautiful.
like, but that point of, I think the number one thing is we need to, the wheels are going to come off on our life if we don't find time to shut up and sit your ass down and be present. I don't care how you do it, meditate, you can call it that, you can journal, but we have to freaking cultivate time to stop. Because, or else we're just running around following
100%.
some damn influencer or some weird ass idea.
I think again, if someone's listening to this and they feel like bad, I'm like, wow, I haven't done it in a very long time. My little advice is that it's so much easier when you're in nature. When I'm in nature, I live between US and Bali. I moved to Bali 2 years ago because it's a feminine island, has feminine energy. Being is celebrated. People live in tune with nature. It's exactly what I need. And so when I'm in Bali, I open my door, birds are singing, palm trees. So easy for me to meditate. I don't look at my phone until 10, 11. It's easy peasy. Come to the US and, I'm in my apartment in West Hollywood that you've been to, and it's much harder to have a good meditation. It's much harder not to feel overwhelmed. And cities are not designed for you to thrive, on so many levels. And if you're really struggling, like, I can't really meditate or it's not doing really well, even if you open the window or a balcony, the moment you hear the birds, like that does it for me. I hear the birds or I smell the nature. I'm like, oh, yeah, I belong here. That's good. I can do it. But it's really hard for me to like drop in with artificial lights in an office, and
Therein lies its own practice. Like,
yeah.
when chaos is going on, can you find that stillness?
Yeah,
Right?
it's much, much harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a whole another muscle. So, okay. So, God, we've been off on so many interesting
Those
topics.
the
I
rapid
don't know if
fire.
anyone else is having fun with this thing, but I certainly am. So, but in terms of, I want to hit a couple practical things in terms of, because women, again, aside from the philosophical, but also very real pressure of women looking a certain way, behaving a certain way, the way, and then to your point, where most things and information is geared towards men, but it's just adopted. So what's the best because women look at, we talked a little bit about, okay, so we can take away and add in and learn about through your book, the circadian rhythms, the lunar flows, the ovulation, incredible to understand that. But it's so easy to look at then, okay, what do I do nutritionally? What do I do exercise-wise? And I saw this all throughout my life. I would see the same woman come in the gym, either a trainer probably is beating the shit out of her, right? She hasn't moved, she hasn't lost a pound of weight in a year. And you can just see it's like, that's just stress. right? And then she's probably going home calorie restricting because everyone said, so she's paying for a trainer, she's getting the shit kicked out of her, and then she's going and restricting her eating. So it's like it's got dysfunction written all over it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yet this is what we do to women, and they feel broken that
Right.
something we're not
So
losing weight.
what do they do? What's the
Wow.
I know it's all in your
Yeah,
book, but
yeah.
what's the highlights?
The highlights would be believe that you're not broken, and if calorie restriction isn't working for you, that's great, because it probably shouldn't. We're not here to restricting. I am eating 3 times as much as I used to, and I'm thinner and stronger and happier. I think this is really
Oh
important
man,
as well.
that's huge.
That there's studies that if they underfed mice, they got aggressive. It's like we don't want to restrict calories, because then the energy, it's just it's not exactly how you want to be remembered, and your legacy of a angry, hungry person.
And again, I want to make a point here because there's longevity studies, Dr. Longo, Dr. Walter Longo, which we featured in Down to Earth first season too. He's a good friend, one of the badass longevity specialists. And I didn't ask him that question. And they say, if you pull even Dan Buettner, the Blue Zones, calorie restrict a little bit, so it's confusing, right? So,
But it's the time.
yeah,
It's the
yes,
time. So
yes, and nutritional quality,
yes.
and what kind of food, and are you nutritionally filled up?
Yes, we eat for
right.
nutrients, and the interesting part is that you can have more calories, but if there is more nutrients, you will actually lose weight. And that the whole idea of we are so obsessed about calories, but I would always ask how many nutrients are the food that I'm eating, because if there isn't enough nutrients, you will end up eating more, right? Because you'll be forever hungry. When we talk about calorie restriction or like limiting calories, I am a big we think of this, I don't know, have 1,400 calories every single day. And you will feel hungry, because depending on where you are in your cycle, you can either have more calories or less calories. For example, I'm on day 7 of my cycle. I can fast for 2 days and get very little calories. I'm going to lose weight. It's going to be great for me. My estrogen is peaking. So that idea of for longevity to have less calories is great, but we have to remember that we're not looking at ourselves as a day, we're looking at ourselves as a month. So overall in a month, I'm going to have less calories. But around day 7, I'm going to push my fasting, and I'm going to go into autophagy, which is like the Marie Kondo of your body, where the body goes with the broom and cleans up the zombie cells. And
yeah.
So that's great. So now in the first 2 weeks of my cycle, I can really fast. I can eat way less calories. I don't need to eat carbs. Amazing. I'm going to shed. And then closer to my period, I'm going to eat more calories. So overall, when you look at like zoom out a little bit and not look at women as having to do the same thing every day, and you realize you actually will eat probably less than you would have, but that every day is different.
The timing. And I love that because we're so addicted to reductionism and reduce things down to, okay, I just need to do that. And we lose the lens of this bigger perspective. And as you're talking, I'm seeing cycles, right? I'm a cycle upon a cycle upon a cycle, not just your cycle, but the circadian cycle, the lunar, and of course the lunar cycle. And then what's going on in your life, the stress cycle, all of these things relating. And now you have it dialed in as to, your cycle, when that's happening, when you can do certain things. But if you were just to adopt this idea and you just do it tomorrow and it's really bad timing for you, you come away with a horrible experience. You put yourself in a metabolic bad stressor, and it derails this whole thing. And then you're going, okay, well, I just listened to this Harvard scientist. I tried to apply what seemed to make scientific sense, and I feel like crap. And now I'm back 12 steps because all I want is to feel better in my body. I want to be sexy for my partner. I want to feel good. Like everyone wants to have the same thing, you know? And so let's talk a little bit about exercise then. And I
Let's do
love the
it.
fact because I've been around some great women in my life. And my ex-wife Eliza is my best friend still, right? Um and also I've been around healthy women eat, and nothing gives me more pleasure when women eat good and eat, and it isn't like
It's like a bird nibbling.
yeah. And listen, there's some issue, like it's not necessarily just in their head. So it's not, men don't have a good understanding of this, right? When you add in all of the metabolic stuff, all of the stress stuff, all of the pressure stuff, all of the I've tried many things which caused other issues, you can come to realize more so that you might see them trying to pick, but they're in crisis. So it's not, we have to stop this as men and shaming women because you don't understand the levels to why it is that, yes, now if they are picking food, they might be having all kinds of reactions. So it's not in their head. So I want to and I'm really happy that we're having this conversation. I'm really stoked that you wrote this book. And I think, large of my audience is mostly women. So they're going to be stoked, I think.
I'm so happy. I think the biggest thing, biohacking, this whole idea of hacking your biology, you can get from point A to point B 2 different ways. You can go calorie restriction and pushing and being really mean to yourself, and like very, I call it like toxic masculine, right? Which is very much like the mean trainer at the gym. Come on, motivation, self-discipline. You're weak if you don't show up. You know what's wrong with you. Or you can realize, wow, I have over 50 hormones in my body. The hormone that tells me when I'm full, hormone that tells me when I'm hungry, like ghrelin, leptin, there are the sex hormones, there is insulin. There's so many hormones that play a role in what I crave, like why I crave certain foods, even that I have cravings in the first place. That's not, if you have a craving, like something is off, right? Like that's a great, like your body is desperate. Either you have candida or some, a glucose crash or, a million other things, right? And so deficiencies. So I guess my biggest thing is like, don't fight your biology. Your biology is so strong. If you ever try to fight your biology, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's brutal. So if you're not motivated, if you feel like it's really hard to get out of bed, I would get myself checked out, work with my body, because I never set my alarm because I wake up at 5:30. Even if I'm like telling myself, I want to sleep in. I haven't been able to sleep in because my body is just like, this is the time. Like we're up, and I wake up and I'm like, wow, I haven't had coffee in so long. I love coffee. It's just like I don't really have the need. It's just more like
ritual.
Ritual, yeah. As it's supposed to be like reverence to
the coffee gods.
But it's like it's treated. It's powerful. The energy of coffee is really powerful, and we use all of these things that should be celebrated as something that is just another thing, and have a little ceremony, like with a beautiful. Why do they call it ceremonial matcha? Right? Because matcha used to be a ceremony. Like every morning, I notice myself when I'm like writing or on my phone, I'm like, oh no. When I drink my matcha, I drink my matcha. Yeah. I just do one thing at a time. This is my ceremony. And so that really changed. So like making the little things so easy that honestly feeling good should be effortless. Feeling good should be something that is a no-brainer, that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And so you need to be overflowing with how good you feel, how great it feels to be alive. Like, holy shit, how good does it feel? And most people are like, have no idea what that feeling is like.
And that's a big one I've thought about a lot, because we get used to, this is us, this is who I am.
Yeah, you said that on my podcast actually, that
That's right.
we
Yeah.
put these labels on ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what I do.
Yeah.
I'm not a morning person, which you can
Right.
change your chronotype to like 100% as well. But like all of these stories, the identities that we picked up along the way,
And if you don't try something else, then you still get what you've been doing.
yeah, if
Right.
you did what you always do, yeah,
You-
when you do what you always did, you will stay who you are.
And
But
we
if you
get
want to,
what
yeah,
you've always got.
yeah, you get that's right, that's right.
We'll get it. You do part of it, I'll
Yeah.
do the other. In terms of intensity of
Oh
exercise,
yes.
what's that look like
So in
now?
a super short summary, at the beginning, when we started around your cycle, the first 5 days when you're on your cycle, there's a lot going on. So this is where I would do like Pilates or yoga. Then around from day 6 to day 12, it's your follicular phase. And this is where you can really do proper strength training. Sorry, strength training, and this is where you can do some excessive cardio and your body's strong. Then you have ovulation. Your testosterone is peaking. You're the strongest. You're almost as strong as a guy. So this is where you do your personal best. Almost. This is your personal best. This is like you should have it in your calendar. I'm like, wow, I really can lift some serious weight. And now
So
I'll
that's your
crush it.
PR day.
Yeah.
You want to go with your
Yeah.
test your
So
PR. Yeah.
So day 14. Then I have about 7 days after that when I can still do some weight. I still can, do my proper heavy weight. And by the way, for women, weights are the most magical thing. You will not look like a dude. I've been lifting weights for years and I clearly am far from that.
Yeah,
it's not that
looking
easy
good,
to
yeah.
build bicep as I'm learning. But the skeletal muscle is what will keep you from aging, will keep you from, like I don't want to even get to this far, but I lost both of my grandparents due to a fall. Super active people stumble, fell, and 6 months later died one way or another because it really is the strength of our muscle is the biggest thing. The more mobile you are, and when you look at the green zones, these are people that are mobile, that have strong skeletal muscle. Muscles are metabolically active, so they burn more calories. So like it's a win-win. You want to have strong skeletal muscle, whether you choose to have a bicep like over here or a bigger butt. That's totally up to you. But strong skeletal muscle are a must
Yeah,
for
it's a
anybody.
must, yeah.
And so about 7 days before your period, we're gonna slow down because if you really push yourself around your period, you will put on weight because that's when your progesterone peaks. And so you have two main sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is at the beginning. This is the hormone that I give an example in the book. She's like me. Estrogen is like very active, loves skydiving, likes being around people, super social, super strong, loves being in her body. And progesterone is like my sister, a homebody. She likes things easy. She likes gentle. She likes being nourished. And this is the time for you to really recharge your batteries, to go slower, to do yoga, to do stretching, to let your muscle recover, to nourish your body, to eat more carbs, Not like, this idea, oh, I'm going to have a tub of ice cream. No, your body's asking you for a
Good
tub of ice
quality
cream.
whole food.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Sweet potato, pumpkin, butternut squash, rice, potato. I mean, there's so many beautiful, amazing carbs that you can have that will help you manage your progesterone. And that's the number, the lack of progesterone is why we have periods that are too short or no period at all, or we're infertile because progesterone is the pregnancy hormone, right? So that's where, because women push themselves too much, this is the first hormone that gets out of whack.
Gets pushed away.
Yeah, so
basically.
you just kind of need to slow down before your period. And, I think in Spain, they said that you can take a day off every month on the first day of your period. But in reality, it would be better to do it before your period so you can actually rest because that's where that's where it's all happening. And only after you can okay.
Yeah, amazing. Well, one big takeaway that I learned just now is men don't get in a fight with your woman when they're ovulating because they're going to kick your ass.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So, so that's a good takeaway.
To be
Don't
fair, you would not feel like fighting with us because we are hunting for men around that time. So we're
Oof.
gonna be all like, hey, like,
Oh, yeah.
flirty, and we gonna go after men. So this is the time for us to really reconnect with our sexuality, with our bodies, and kind of feel like it's up to us, And there's this joke on social media that if you end up sleeping with a girl on a date, and if she's wearing a beautiful lingerie, she dragged you to bed. But if she's wearing cotton ones, that you dragged her. And I think,
That's funny.
yeah, and I think it's a little bit like that. It's that, you know, we're powerful, and it's okay for you to embrace that sexuality and that feeling of like, yeah, I want it and I got it, like I want.
Well, God dang, this is almost like relationship. You need this information as men. Like if I'm
Oh, 100.
understanding estrogen, ovulation, and progesterone and the period and what you just described, I in my head going, you need to plan
Oh, 100%.
based on who's showing up. And that's a good thing. Like don't drag her out like when she's in heavy progesterone
Yeah.
space, like nurture, like set up a movie at home, or I'm just making
No,
shit
no,
up,
but
but
this is actually, I mentioned that in the book, and we're working on an app for men to help them understand. Because imagine it's like using the most incredible machine that you don't have instruction manual for,
right.
right? And it's a little bit confusing. What's going on? What is it today? I feel like I'm dating four other humans. Depends on the day. So like if she's before her period, it's not only her mood, but there's no cervical fluid happening. Her cervix is a little lower, so she's gonna experience more pain around penetration. So she's like gonna feel like, oh wow, she's gonna dry, so it's gonna be painful. But around ovulation, super lubricated, obviously because we're fertile, and very different experience. So even as a man, a lot of men complain that they feel rejected, for example, by their women, or they're not always up for it. But if you knew that it's completely normal, maybe you know that, oh, it's progesterone time, she just needs more intimacy. So if I do the proper, what's the right word, not even a foreplay, but like more of a
Just loving.
just loving, and just more like celebration, and less like expectation of anything, then you still can get your woman to sleep with you, but you just have to approach it very differently.
Right.
Around ovulation, you don't have to convince her twice. She probably is going to drag you first thing in the morning. But around her period or before her period, it's going to be a little bit more intimacy that she craves and needs to be seen. And you need to listen to her for an hour where she talks and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, yes, baby, yes, baby. And then all of a sudden, wow, you're just the best. And then there you go.
Right. No, but it's very powerful, I think, that we understand all of this stuff. That's incredible. And I think that app is going to be super successful. So I'm going to rapid through some of these other ones, which is funny
Yeah.
because nothing's rapid. But it could be your book, it could be something acute, it could be a big picture thing, it could be whatever it is. What are you the most excited about right now? Truly.
Wow. I realize I don't know if I can say this or my lawyers would kill me, but I want to get women off the pill. But I know the biggest reason why women are on the pill is because they fear pregnancy. And so what I have been working on with Sean Wells, the best supplement formulator in the world, is a supplement that will help women have a very regular period, that you can really count on the fact that, okay, this is my ovulation. Because when you do and you realize you're only fertile for 2 or 3 days a month, you can potentially maybe get off the pill, right? And again, I perhaps shouldn't say that, but that's our biggest dream. And I've invested all of my money into that supplement, that there's a different pill for every day. So it's like a bit of spin-off, but it's all natural herbal support of helping you detox and supporting estrogen at this part, supporting progesterone, supporting testosterone. So you take it and you finally come back to that rhythm. And that's been my biggest goal in life. I can get one woman to come back to her natural cycle, the lunar cycle, and really have her celebrated. That's going to be my biggest honor.
Wow. That's
So.
incredible. Well, it's not out there yet, So you're not
Yeah.
in trouble, but the fact that that's your goal is amazing, and an alternative to just a pharmaceutical horrible dance.
Yeah. It's apparently you can't say that publicly that it's a alternative, but unofficially, since no one is
Well, okay,
recording
so
this, no,
yeah,
no, no.
so
I'm
let's just
kidding.
say a supportive nutrition specifically for women.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah, that's great. What are you most concerned about right now? Could be globally, could be acutely, it could be the same thing. I don't know. What are you?
Probably. I'm concerned about the lack of support women give to each other. I have experienced, you know, I, a lot of beautiful support from even from you. Like, come on my podcast, share the message without any agenda, without expecting anything in return. And my experience from men in the wellness space has been nothing but pure supportive. They want more women. They want to celebrate women. I have not had an experience of a single man just trying to bring me down or feeling like there isn't enough room for you. But I would love to see more women in this space in wellness, making great money, killing it in business, and supporting their sister, because we need more women that are thriving and supporting. And so that would be great. Not that I haven't been not supported by women, but I feel like there isn't almost like enough women to reciprocate, right? Because it's like we don't really believe in ourselves. So yeah,
You need to get on Jennifer Cohen's podcast.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys need to exchange. She's a very dear friend, and she's such a great human, and I think
Oh.
she would just find this conversation really
Oh.
powerful for sure. What's the best health advice that you've been told?
Listen to your gut. You know best.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I remember this researcher buddy of mine I've known for 25 years, and it goes along with that. His name's Dr. Mohsen Hermanish. He just actually gave me the term 25 years ago called fatal conveniences. He'd have to make up words explaining what he was talking about because he was so brilliant. Anyway, he said he goes, there is no person closer to you than you.
Oh, so good.
So I can't, don't give me that authority, because the authority is you, and the authority is listening.
Yeah, and I don't want like I love that. I even say that in a book. This is my truth, but I don't want you to take it as the truth, right? Like, you need to see it for yourself, see how you feel, because at the end of the day, I don't want you to come and heal yourself from a place Aggie told me or Darin told me. No, this is just inspiration, and then you're going to sit with yourself and test it and see, because you are the only person that can heal yourself, nobody else. So, yeah.
Amazing. What are if someone were to take away 3 things from maybe this podcast, specifically this cool areas, I've really enjoyed this.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
What are some things that you would like people to take away?
It's perfectly okay not to be productive 24/7, 365 days. Nature isn't. We made the nature be that way because we're all about profit. So we are exhausting her and killing her as we speak. So nothing in nature is blooming
Right.
all the time.
Ebbs and flows. Yeah.
Ebbs and flows, and it's cyclical, and we are nature, and we need to live accordingly to nature. And so that's the biggest. The further away you get from nature, the more burned out, exhausted, sick you're gonna feel. The closer you get, the easier. There's flow and ease and abundance and love and health and joy and wellness. And if there is wellness practice that stresses you out, it's no longer wellness. It's meant to be just natural and normal and beautiful.
Damn right. That was epic.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Amazing.